everyone, welcome to Saucy Fix's channel. Thank you for joining us today on a fix of a Danby 12,000 SACC BTU portable air conditioner. Thanks for joining the channel. This is a channel designed for the modern dad and the modern mom, fixing things around the house instead of throwing them away. A little bit of backstory on this one here. We have the same model, which is, it's a Danby DPA 120B9IWDB6, Jesus long, but in black. So this is a 14,000 BTU air conditioner or a 12,000 BTU SACC. SACC is just the more accurate cooling power of these things with real world conditions. So we have the same one in black we purchased from Costco 3 years ago. I'm sure many of you have as well. That one has been flawless. It will cool our entire main level of our townhouse, about 600 to 700 square feet in the dead of summer without issue. These are inverter air conditioners, so they are a little bit more quiet than your standard always on, always off compressor on your old portable air conditioners, as well as these guys have self-evaporating technology. We decided we wanted to get another one for our top floor of our house. My son has one in his room, an older one, about 10 years old. It's one of the non-inverter ones, so it's quite loud, but it does the job for his room. It also has self-evaporating technology. Now, most modern portable air conditioners, and I say modern, within the last 10 to 15 years, will have self-evaporating technology. Self-evaporating means the water that it collects, condensation that collects from the air inside, will be exhausted out the window. Now, we wanted to get another one for our top floor to keep that cool. Again, that's about 600 or 700 square feet because it's a townhouse, a two-level townhouse. We wanted one so that we could cool the top level down. We didn't want to buy a brand new one from Costco, so I looked on Marketplace and I found this guy. It was about $150 cheaper than all the other used Danby ones of the same model on Marketplace, and that should have been my first sign, but I thought I was getting a sweet deal. So I headed on down to the seller's house and picked this guy up. They did tell me that they had a hose hooked up to it right here on the top drain port, and it would drain continuously, which I thought was interesting because we have the same one in black and we've never had to drain it in 3 years. And I mentioned that, well, you shouldn't have to drain it because they have self-evaporating technology, but at the time I didn't think much of it. And they also didn't have this drain plug with the drain cap with the drain plug, which I thought, no problem. I can print one of those off on my 3D printer, no big deal. So I brought it home, hooked it up, and yeah, it worked fantastic for about an hour. And then we got the doomed P1 error code. P1 error code just meaning that the bottom reservoir is full of water and the float valve has gone up and shut off the unit so you don't have a flood. At that time I was like, I understand why they had the hose hooked up to it and they were constantly draining it. Now I know that that is not the intended function or design of these portable air conditioners because again we have one that self-drains and no problem. So I did some research online, and probably part of the reason why you're here is because there's nothing really online. There's no disassembly videos, there's no information on why you'd be getting P1 error codes. So I said, okay, well, I am a bit of a handyman and I like to kind of take things apart and figure out why they work the way they work. So I decided to rip this one apart and I couldn't find a single thing wrong with it. It looked in better condition than the one we bought 3 years ago. So I know it wasn't used very much. It looked almost brand new inside. And so I said, okay, I'll rip apart our old one, see if there's any differences in the two. Couldn't see anything. So I spent a good couple hours looking at it and I finally figured out a couple things. Now, if you want to just see the fix on potentially how you can fix yours with the P1 error code, jump ahead in the video. I'll show you where that is. Or if you want to know how these things work, so that in the future, if you ever come across something similar, you know how it works and you've had to troubleshoot it. So let's get to the disassembly of this air conditioner. And yeah. Okay, so this air conditioner is completely taken apart by Phillips or Starhead screws. We have two screws right here and here that connect to the vent that goes out of the window. And we also have screw here, 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 and here. And then two on each side that we'll take apart. Now these shouldn't give you much trouble. They're just standard Starhead or Phillips screws. Now there are two screws up here in the middle that are longer, so you'll need a screwdriver. My hex bit isn't long enough. Okay, oh, and I forgot, there's another screw down here, as well as the same thing on the other side. We'll take those out. And these are all the same size screws, so don't worry about keeping track of which screw goes where. And once you have the screws out, the back should just pop off. Take your filter out. This is just your air intake filter. Should just come out like that. Now, it may, hear it, the clip come undone. It's not broken or anything like that. There we go. Back cover off. Okay, we'll go over the very basics of how these portable air conditioners work, and if there are any engineers or HVAC professionals in the comments or videos, again, I am not a professional. I'm just a handyman. I don't have a job that deals with this kind of stuff. I've just kind of learned things over the years and doing what you're doing right now, watching YouTube videos. So essentially how any portable or any air conditioner works is the physics or the thermodynamics of heat going to cold. So heat will always go to cold. You have a couple of main components here. You have your evaporator coils up here, your condenser coils down here, blower fan over here, which will blow hot, moist air out the window, and a fan up here. This is your fan for your indoor sucking air across these evaporator coils and out into your room. You also have your compressor down here, electronics up front, and yeah, that's basically it. Obviously, there's a little bit more minutia. So essentially how it works, again, my basic understanding of this, is your compressor will compress the refrigerant in here. Refrigerant has a low boiling point, and it'll compress it to high pressure vaporous state. So, whenever you convert any material from liquid to a vapor, that takes energy, right? And it'll suck energy from around it. So it'll take the warm refrigerant and it'll compress it so that the pressure raises as well as the heat. It'll travel through these pipes to the condenser coil. The condenser coil will circulate the refrigerant through that back up to the evaporator coil. Now, when that high pressure, high temp refrigerant gets to, there's a valve in here, and essentially what happens is it goes to a much larger pipe, and that pipe will allow the refrigerant to expand. And when it's lowering the pressure. When it lowers the pressure, it'll turn back into a liquid. And again, that all takes energy, which we will refer to as heat. And so when that now cooled liquid refrigerant gets circulated through the evaporator, it'll suck the warm air in your house across the coils, which will suck the warm air out of it, heating the refrigerant. Now that heated refrigerant goes back to the compressor, where it'll compress it again and go through the condenser coils here, which will be suck the warm air out. Now, where we run into problems is when you have your evaporator coils here. Now, anything cold, a glass of water with ice in it, for example, on a hot day will make air around it because you're changing the vapor, the water vapor in the air, you're cooling it down into a liquid state. So it collects on these condenser coil or these evaporator coils and it drips down and condensate. Normally that's not a problem because you have these drains dripping over the hot condenser coils. These are very hot. And so when the water drips over them, it'll evaporate again and it'll get sucked out into the exhaust hose. Now, one thing that I didn't realize that these portable air conditioners have is something called a slinger fan. A slinger fan is a little fan inside the condenser coils that will sling the condensate from the bottom that drips down, and it'll sling it against the condenser coils here. Slinging it against the condenser coils will evaporate it and send the warm, moist air out the window. Now, I took this all apart and I figured out that the slinger fan on mine wasn't working. So I had to take it out. I had to take it apart even further. So to get to the front, you have a Phillips head screw there, Phillips head screw there, one there. We'll take those out. That one's a little tricky to get to. You might need a screwdriver, with a flex head of some sort. That's what I use. We'll grab my flex head screwdriver. I do have a hex flex head extension on my wish list, so I'm just waiting for that to pop up at Christmas or my birthday or something like that. I'm sure it will. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And why the Danby engineers decided to put these screws in there like that, I don't know. But alas, here we are. Got that one out, that one out, that one out. Take this one out. Okay, those out. We also have 2 screws in the front. And with all those screws out, this should pop off now. Now you gotta be careful that you don't break the top blower fan assembly. And one thing I noticed is that on these sides here, there's clips. They're clipped into the side. If you unclip those first, it tends to want to come out a little easier. You should also be aware that a lot of the cables have clips on them. Okay. Once you have it undone, there is a Wi-Fi chip here. Pull that out. And now we got the front cover off. Set that aside. So this is what we have in the front. So again, like I was explaining, your condenser coils are down here, and your evaporator coils are up here. This is your blower fan to suck air across the evaporator coils and then out the top here into your house. So it'll suck the warm air from your house across the coils, which will then now cooled air will come out into your house, and the byproduct of that is that it'll remove condensation. It'll cool the warm, moist air, which will turn it into a liquid, and it'll drip down. Now, like I said, I spent hours trying to figure this out. What I didn't realize is right down here, there is a little motor. We'll zoom in on that little motor here. So that right there is the motor. What I did is I noticed that at the bottom there's a little spindle, a little rod that connects from the motor inside the condenser down here. And I noticed that it was a little off kilter. And one way you can tell if your slinger fan is working or not is when it's working and when the air conditioner is on and it's in cool mode, you can put your ear up to the bottom of the front here, and you'll hear it you'll hear the splashing because it's literally just a small circular fan splashing the condensation that's coming down from the evaporator coils up onto these hot compressor coils or condenser coils. And so you can actually hear the fan spinning and spinning water and splashing it up onto these coils. Now I noticed that mine wasn't spinning and it looked off. And so to get to that, I had to take off the front panel here. This is going to be your main circuit board, your electronics, your inverter here. So that comes off, just a couple screws there. And what I noticed is this motor is actually only connected with one screw right down here. That mount was crooked, and on the other side of the motor, it sits on a little piece of plastic. Now, my guess is that in transportation from the warehouse or the manufacturer, it got jostled and the motor jumped up off of the plastic mount, which caused the fan to jam up against the condenser coils, against the coils, so the fan wasn't moving. Now, under the thermal camera, so before I figured this all out, I took the thermal camera to it, and I did notice that this fan was quite warm. I don't know exactly what the temperature was because I wasn't too concerned with it. I noticed it was a motor, but I noticed it was quite warm. So for however long they had this thing running with the hose coming out the back, because it wasn't evaporating, that motor was stuck, jammed up against these coils. So I don't know if that's going to affect it in the long term, if that's going to affect how long that motor lasts, but I'll cross that bridge whenever we get there. So essentially what I did is I repositioned the motor back onto the plastic mount and screwed it back down and started it up, and immediately noticed that it was running and it was working fine. Now, I've had this thing running for a couple of weeks now. I've never had to drain it. You can see the bottom here, it is completely bone dry. Now, why you're getting that P1 code is because down here, see if I can get in there and show you. So down there, you can see there's a little white float valve. That float valve so this reservoir will fill with water, and the float valve will go up, go up, go up until it gets to a certain point, and it'll shut the air conditioner off. That is why you're getting your P1 code there. Now, how the condensate works is you'll have the condensation dripping down here. Now, under here, I've also taken this off. This is relatively easy to take off. A couple of screws here, 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 and down here. And you will see right here where this reservoir is, there's holes all along the top. And there's also holes here. You can see them, the holes there. So that will actually fill with water, and the water will drip over, will fill, and it'll go over these holes down through the condenser coils. That is how you get water filling up here, so and down here, because at the bottom, that's where the reservoir is over here. And so when this and this fills up, you will get that P1 code. Now, the slinger fan is designed to prevent that by slinging all the excess condensation up against these hot coils and evaporating the water out of your house. So that was the fix for me. Luckily, I did take the fan out. The fan, like I said, is about that big, and it wasn't broken. None of the blades were broken or anything. It was just simply jammed up against the coils. There's not much room for the fan to sit in there. So if it's off tilt one way or the other, it'll just jam up. And that's my guess, is that this motor jammed up in transit, and it probably never worked from the get-go, because like I said, this thing was very clean. It still is very clean compared to the one we had running for 3 years. Yeah, so that's the fix. And now if your fan is broke, the motor is not working, even though the fan is not jammed, or if the fan blades are all broken, you may have to replace the motor and the fan blades. Now, these do come apart completely. I haven't gone down that road. I did take it apart enough to be able to lift these condenser coils up and look at the fan enough to see that it wasn't damaged. And you do have a little bit of wiggle room with these copper pipes, but not a ton. So I'm sure you could take the entire thing off, which would be a bigger project than I wanted to get into. But yeah, hopefully that helps. I hope you're able to fix your air conditioner. Like I said, Costco probably has sold millions of these things, and I'm sure one or two of them have had that issue. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.